Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I have the privilege to chair probably the session which we consider as a key session of this annual meeting, if not its most important one. The World Economic Forum has been involved in the Middle East through many activities, actually since 30 years. And I remember when in 1976 I took the initiative at the midst of the oil crisis, as it was called at the time, to bring the Arab and the Western world together. And it was the beginning at that time of a normalization of the process. Unfortunately, 30 years later, we still speak about conflicts, and this afternoon we speak particularly about the Palestinian-Israeli relationship. I am pleased to moderate such a powerful panel, and it gives me great honor to welcome a man who has shown tremendous courage. Please welcome President Abbas. We have the finest, most prominent members of the Israeli government with us, and I welcome Deputy Prime Minister Livni, who is Minister of Foreign Affairs, but also, what probably most of you do not know, Minister of Justice. I don't know how you can manage both. And, of course, for me, it's with special joy that I greet the old friend of the Forum, Vice Premier Shimon Peres. Shimon. Those of you who have been with us at our Middle East summits and in Davos before, you know we had such panels before, and we decided to choose a title, I think, which is significant in itself: enough is enough. And in order to prepare this session, we felt we should give the voice to the ordinary people on the street, not only to politicians. And you should listen to those ordinary people, particularly young people, who assembled in 3 different places. We held town hall meetings in Jerusalem, in Ramallah, and in Tel Aviv, and they recorded messages, particularly for you, the leaders, and I would say those are messages of great hope. These messages are delivered to us here today thanks to the efforts of OneVoice, led by Daniel Lubetsky. If you are in the room, please stand up. And I'm proud to say that Daniel is one of the young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. Now, let's first have a short introduction into OneVoice. May I ask for the film, please?
A group of World Economic Forum.
Extremists on both sides try to define who we are.
For far too long, moderates supporting a two-state solution have been silent.
Less than 5 years ago, a group of World Economic Forum members and young global leaders helped us conceive and build a platform for change.
This platform became OneVoice, a non-partisan youth movement that amplifies the voice of the Palestinian and Israeli people.
One Voice enables Israeli and Palestinian citizens to take concrete steps to propel political representatives towards a comprehensive peace agreement.
מ-300 תומכים בשנת 2002 הגיעה התנועה ל250,000 ישראלים ופלסטינאים.
لقد تم تدريب ما يزيد عن 2,000 من القيادات الشابة الفلسطيني والإسرائيلي.
עדיין לא ניצחנו במלחמה למען השלום.
ولكننا لن نتوقف عن النضال بالطرق غير العنيفة حتى نحقق النصر.
כי יותר מדי מונח על הכף.
Each one of us needs to understand our power and our responsibility.
And embrace our role by asking, what am I willing to do to end the conflict?
What am I willing to do to end the conflict?
What am I willing to do to end the conflict?
What am I willing to do to end the conflict?
It's the first time that someone is really asking the students what they think.
We have around 6,000, all are filled.
Have to promise and have to believe that we can do it. There's a chance to achieve peace.
السلام معه خان صف كده سيادة السخوخ.
Now, thank you for your efforts, Dan. Now, we have the three messages which were prepared in the three town hall meetings, and we start first with the message from Tel Aviv. Several hundred Israelis met to prepare a joint statement for you, the leaders, and this is Adi in Tel Aviv.
התכנסנו כאן היום, מכל רחבי ישראל, מערים וקיבוצים, חילוניים ודתיים, יהודים וערבים, כדי לומר בכל אחד, הגיע הזמן לסיים את הסכסוך. כולנו סבלנו מספיק, משפחות וילדים נפגעו, חיים ותקוות נהרסו. בכל רגע נתון חיינו בסכנה, אם על ידי קסאמים בסדרות, או על ידי פיגועים באוטובוסים או בבתי קפה. באנו לכאן היום, כדי לומר לכם, כי הרוב המכריע בישראל תומך בפתרון של שתי מדינות, כדרך היחידה, להשיג הסכם הוגן ויציב שיביא חופש וביטחון לשני העמים. מדוע החזון הזה לא יתממש? גם בגלל שאנחנו, האזרחים, בשני העמים, לא עשינו מספיק על מנת להגשים את השאיפות שלנו. אז מה אנחנו יכולים לעשות כדי להחזיר את התקווה? אני מאמינה שהתשובה היחידה היא שכל אחד מאיתנו ייקח אחריות ויוזמה אישית למען עתיד טוב יותר. רק אם מיליוני פלסטינים וישראלים מתונים יעשו צעד קטן, נוכל לשחרר את הכוח של ההמונים ולקבל את החיים שלנו בחזרה. אנחנו חייבים לשנות את התחושה שזהו סכסוך בלתי נמנע וללא פתרון. או שלנו, המתונים, אין שום תפקיד. אין לנו שום יכולת לשנות. אסור לנו לשבת בבית, מתוסכלים ומשותקים מייאוש. כי אז ניתן לקיצוניים לנצח. מנהיגים יקרים, זהו המסר שאנחנו רוצים להעביר לכם היום. הגיע הזמן שנתחיל להקשיב לרצון ולקול שלנו, של הרוב המתון, ונפסיק ללכת אחרי הקיצוניים אשר משתלטים על האג'נדה שלנו, של מיליוני ישראלים ופלסטינים. ראש הממשלה אולמרט, הנשיא אבו מאזן. אתם יכולים לנוע קדימה ולהיות בטוחים שרוב הישראלים והפלסטינים מוכנים לעשות פשרות אמיתיות על מנת להגיע לסיום הסכסוך. פשוט כי אנחנו יודעים שאין אלטרנטיבה אחרת. אנחנו כאן כדי לתמוך בכם. אנחנו מבטיחים לעמוד לצדכם שאתם מתחילים את המשא ומתן לא כולנו מייחלים. אנחנו מבטיחים לעמוד מול אלה שמוכנים לעשות הכל כדי למנוע התקדמות. אבל יותר מהכל, אנחנו מבטיחים לכם שכאשר אתם עושים צעדים אמיצים והיסטוריים למען סיום הסכסוך, לא תישארו לבד. אנחנו נהיה איתכם לאורך כל הדרך, אבל לא נהיה מוכנים לקבל תירוצים או עיכובים. לא נהיה מוכנים להסתפק בפחות מחיים בטוחים ונורמליים. מיליוני אנשים מביטים בכם. הם מוכנים לקחת אחריות אישית, לעשות כל מה שביכולתם. האם אתם מוכנים לעשות את כל מה שביכולתכם? אנחנו כאן מוכנים לעשות הכל למען סיום הסכסוך. מה אתם מוכנים לעשות?
Thank you. Thank you, Adi. I'm sure that you and hundreds, maybe thousands of people are looking at us through the webcast of this session. We are now looking at the statement from Ramallah, and I have to highlight that in spite of the very serious tensions and against the backdrop of violence and lack of security, nevertheless, this town hall meeting took place, and let's listen to Neshreen from Ramallah.
من رام الله نحن أبناء الشعب الفلسطيني جئنا من مدن وقرى ومخيمات اللاجئين. جئنا لنحييكم ونتوجه إليكم أصحاب الجلالة والفخامة، رؤساء الدول، رجال الدين، صناع القرار. جئنا لنقول لكم لقد فقد أهلنا وأحبتنا الأمل، وأصبحوا يعيشون في دوامة من اليأس والإحباط وبحزن ومرارة، فإنهم غير ملامين بسبب عذابات الاحتلال التي سئمناها، والإغلاقات والحصار ومنع الحركة بين المدن ونقاط التفتيش والجدار العازل الذي يفصل أهلنا عن بعضهم وعن أراضيهم، والعنف الذي يهدد مجتمعنا، والفقر الخانق الذي استشرى في بيوتنا جميعا. هل سنتمكن يوما من إنجاز خيار حل الدولتين؟ هل سنتمكن من تحقيق دولة فلسطينية مستقلة تعيش بأمن وسلام ومساواة مع جيرانها وكافة دول العالم؟ ألا يحق لنا نحن الأمهات أن نحلم بمستقبل واعد آمن مزدهر لأطفالنا لينمو ويترعرع كبقية أطفال العالم؟ فمن حقي أن أضمن مستقبلا أفضل لطفلتي البالغة من العمر 2 شهرين وأخاها البالغ 6 سنوات. تعلمون كما أعلم أننا نحن الأمهات فلسطينيات وحتى إسرائيليات لسنا واثقات بأن السلام قد يتحقق يوما، ولكننا لن نستسلم، لأننا نؤمن بأن التغيير يتطلب العزم والتصميم، ومعكم وبكم سننجز التغيير والسلام لا محالة من أجل مستقبل واعد لأطفالنا. أيها القادة الأعزاء، لكل منا دور يؤديه، فأعمال الاستثمار لتحقيق الازدهار والأمل، وبدعم قادة المجتمع لتعزيز سيادة القانون، وبحث القادة الروحيين لرعاياهم للعمل من أجل العدل والسلام لكافة شعوب المنطقة، والقادة السياسيين باتخاذهم خطوات جريئة، وبمشاركة عامة الشعب في حملات التوعية المجتمعية السلمية نستطيع جميعا إنجاز المستحيل. لرئيسنا، لرمزنا، باسم شعبنا وبأعلى أصواتنا نقول: ملايين الفلسطينيين وأصدقاء متطوعين في صوتنا فلسطين معكم وإلى جانبكم، جاهزون لإنجاز خيار سلام الشجعان لقادة العالم، لصناع القرار. نقول: كفى وعودا، كفى أعذارا، كفى معاناة، لقد طالت محنتنا، ساعدونا لكي لا نفقد الأمل، ساعدونا لدعم مسيرتنا، لدعم قيادتنا للعودة لطاولة المفاوضات وإنجاز اتفاقية سلام نهائية عادلة.
Thank you, Nasrin, and let's close this link to the people with a joint statement from the holy city of Jerusalem. And of course, it is most appropriate that here we have the two voices, Said and Iran, in Jerusalem.
Hello, Shalom. Salam. We are gathered here in Jerusalem, the holy city. We have one message for you, distinguished leaders in Davos. Help us bring the peace to this region, for we fear a violent clash is heading towards our path.
If you are reading the political map wisely, you can tell that unless Palestinians and Israelis join forces as one voice for a two-state solution, those that want to manipulate our region for their benefit will stop at nothing to turn this solvable conflict into an eternal battleground.
Indeed, the need for us to unite now is crucial. All of us, Israelis, Palestinians, Arabs, Europeans, Americans, Jews, Muslims, Christians, and from all the religions. We have to reject intolerance. We have to denounce those who seek to sow hatred as a geopolitical tactics. We have to denounce those who seek to denounce us by using the tools of war to divide our civilizations.
Our city, Jerusalem, is at the unwitting heart of this tragic conflict. Our city, Jerusalem, she cries for peace. Our city, Jerusalem, she weeps as Her Holiness is manipulated by a fringe of extremists, seeking to overshadow the loving, tolerant aspects of our religions. Let one voice be heard from Jerusalem, a voice of moderate people from all over the world.
Palestinians and Israelis wish to resolve this conflict. They both need each other, and they need to stand united as one against extremism. The fate of Israelis and Palestinians is shared, and so is our conviction not to let extremists infiltrate and damage our cause for peace and prosperity.
We appreciate this opportunity from the World Economic Forum. Today provides proof of a determination from both sides, Palestine and Israel, respecting and strengthening each other and shining as an example to the world.
There may well be a limit to what people can do today, but we have yet to test this limit. History is only made when we don't let our inaction define the limits of our power. Our distinguished leaders in Davos, our Prime Minister Ehud Olmert.
And to our Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas, we need your help, your guidance, your partnership to get there, and we'll do our part.
Thank you, Said and Iran. I'm told by one voice that the people who have participated in those town hall meetings pledged to assemble every Friday. And every Friday they want to bring one other person again. So it will develop into a movement until there is a just and lasting peace in the area. Now, the leaders here have listened to those voices, and you are asked to deliver a new vision without delay and without excuse, with no excuses. So let's listen to the leaders. And I would like to invite first President Abbas. Would you please share with us the Palestinian vision of the future? Yeah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
Merciful and compassionate. As I watched these three messages, hope rose even more in my heart that peace is due and that peace is forthcoming. As the young now appear to attach more than us, their elders, to peace. So I think if we ask them to negotiate, I am sure they would achieve results much faster than what would have occurred to us. This is my first comment to these three messages we have just heard. I would like to point out that whenever we held negotiations or established committees, and more specifically after Oslo and up to 1999, we had always established a single committee known as the People-to-People Committee. We consider that such a committee would be far more important than any economic or political committee, as we had always sought to link up between both nations and so they could both speak dialogue, as the absence of dialogue, the absence of trust and knowledge and getting to know one another between Palestinian and Israeli, no peace could occur. In the past century, though we lived side by side along joint borders, we did not have this people-to-people relationship. However, we have reached that step now, belatedly. And I believe that dialogue between nations, between the various sectors of society, students, workers and others, will lead to peace. So these messages and these gatherings are important. We must always recall what is taking place in the United States. We must remember the peace camps that bring together Palestinian and Israeli children, and I believe that all these attempts will bring about positive results and will show that we wish to get to know one another and to live together in peace. Thank you. This was a short introduction which these messages inspired me to make. Ladies and gentlemen, my greetings to you all. My sincere thanks to the President of the conference for this kind invitation to take part in this forum. It has become an international platform that gathers the political, business and economic leaders of the world who have contributed to building our human future and present. I hope that the discussions and meetings to be held here will bring about a better understanding of the world's problems and political and economic woes, so that we may all achieve that dream we have all chased, that's to say, a world where the spirit of goodwill, mutual respect and common benefits will prevail. To overcome the causes of unrest and concern between nations will bring about peace between nations. It shall strengthen the hand of the moderates and those peace-loving nations against extremism. You agree with me undoubtedly that the Middle East is now in dire need of peace, as the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is one of the most serious conflicts that require a solution. I am fully convinced that despite all the difficulties, an atmosphere conducive to a resumption of the peace process is in existence, one that could lead to the establishment of an independent Palestinian state within the borders of 1967, that is to say on the West Bank, Eastern Jerusalem and the Gaza Strip, where we could live in peace and security with all our neighbors, including Israel, and we could reach a fair solution, and agreed one, to the problem of the Palestinian refugees under Resolution 194 of the United Nations. To reach this goal, no new initiatives or resolutions are required. Many resolutions and recommendations by the United Nations and the Security Council have been adopted. Agreements have been signed by both sides, Israeli and Palestinian. We have the roadmap of Abbas, a roadmap that includes the Arab Initiative, as well as President Bush's vision regarding the two-state solution. Therefore, what is required now, in all honesty, is for us to trace the beginning and the end of this peace process. The map is there. We have all agreed to it. So let us sit down and seek to implement this plan. Let us review it and seek to implement it. I am convinced we can reach a quick solution. To agree to the legal and legislative framework, namely the principle of land for peace, shall enable us to perceive that light at the end of the tunnel, especially that our past experiences have shown that partial agreements, single-handed measures, only lead to a non-ending tunnel. We had suggested to establish alternative channels of communication to deal with the end solutions with international participation. Such problems need creative solutions, one that would end the struggle in a fair and comprehensive and agreed-to solution. In fact, I had suggested this to Prime Minister Olmert and to Mrs. Condoleezza Rice, and I believe that now we are proceeding along this road, and it is a right one. We have all agreed that we need to follow this direction, which undoubtedly will lead us to peace. The need to lead my people to peace and forgiveness is what leads me to speak about the tragic economic situation of the people in the occupied Palestinian territories. This situation leads to despair and helplessness. It threatens to overcome all efforts undertaken to achieve peace. Unemployment and poverty have reached unprecedented levels. 70% of the inhabitants of Gaza live below the poverty line. 51% of these live in extreme poverty. The same percentage also applies to the West Bank. This is due to the fact that the total Israeli control of the borders, restrictions against movement, and the widespread destruction of the infrastructure over the past years, the increased breaking up of the Palestinian territories, social disruption, the fall in local taxes because of the many restrictions on the local economy, in addition to the impediments against providing access and right to establishment to investors, be they Arab or non-Arab, have also caused economic problems. Israel has refrained from granting such facilities since 1999. However, To be fair, Israel has started to open up these facilities recently. The results of this situation I have just described is the increased gap between the income of an Israeli and his Palestinian neighbor. The Palestinian share of GDP is less than $800, while an individual in Israeli society's GDP amounts to about $20,000. And as my friend Shimon Peres always says, you must care for your neighbor. You must seek to enhance his standing, because once your neighbor loses his standing, then yours will follow. So I tell to them now, your neighbor's standards are falling, so you must help us so that we may live side by side in peace and security. Were it not for the assistance of the international community that helped to alleviate this situation, a total collapse would have taken place in the economic and social situation. And the Arab and international assistance which is distributed through my office to all those extending a hand of assistance, I would like to express my thanks. As you may well know, ladies and gentlemen, that the despair and the suffering is not only an economic one. We have the daily arrests, the destruction of the land, the mistreatment of the citizens at the many crossing points, the settlement expansion, as well as the continued building of the separation wall, which was described as a viper wending its way on the West Bank. All this, in fact, has led to the taking over of more lands belonging to Palestinians. We have agreed recently with Mr. Olmert to remove many of the barriers separating between Palestinian cities and villages. Despite all this, and so that these measures may not lead to despair and hopelessness, we have sought to keep the flame of hope alive and to keep our struggle on the right track, in accordance with international legitimacy and law. We have refused and condemned all operations against civilians. We rejected terrorism in all its forms and appearances. We condemned the firing of rockets, which only lead to further unrest and sieges. We insist on strengthening the culture of peace, and that opposition to occupation be a peaceful one, a people one, and that our hand remains outstretched to start the negotiating process. I would like to point out here to those efforts undertaken and successes achieved to pacify the situation, and which led to an almost comprehensive drop in armed operation, including the firing of rockets from the Gaza Strip. We hope this truce shall help to install calm and include the West Bank, providing that this, of course, shall be accompanied by a halting of arrests and killing by the Israeli side. The number of detainees from the Palestinian side exceeds 10,000, including children, women, the elderly and the sick, including as well as many other detainees who are under administrative detention who have not been judged yet. We are speaking of Palestinian prisoners as well in the same breath as we speak of the Israeli detainee and prisoner, and we hope he shall be released, just as we hope that the Palestinian prisoners and detainees shall be released. Our responsibility towards our nations and their future require us to bring about a change in the atmosphere prevailing. Fear, concern and doubt must be replaced by confidence and forgiveness. We must implement what has been agreed to and respect by one partner for the other. Recently, I held an excellent meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister Olmert, during which we very frankly and openly spoke of a series of issues. We agreed to measures which shall be taken by Israel to alleviate the suffering of the Palestinian people. We hope that all what has been declared in the form of facilities regarding the crossing points, the barriers, or the funds, part of which were in fact transferred a few days ago, as well as other issues. Allow me at the end of the statement to deal with the question of the Palestinian government. A government that was set up after independent and free elections of our Legislative Council. The government was requested, and in a letter of appointment signed by me, that government was called upon to respect the agreements and Palestinian, Arab and international conventions signed by the Palestinian Liberation Organization as the sole legitimate representative of the Palestinian people, as well as the national authority and its institutions, including the government. Any new government, be it one based on political organizations or national forces, must include in its program a commitment to all the conventions and agreements signed. It must be able to lift the siege and to open the way in front of a political settlement. If we are unable to establish such a government, then we have said so before and we reaffirm this again, we shall head for presidential and legislative elections, early elections, whereby the Palestinian people will freely determine its program and leadership, the one of its own free choice. Mr. Chairman, the time has come for us to bring and gather, harness all forces of goodwill to make peace a reality. Let us start today, before tomorrow, in genuine negotiations. I am fully prepared to do so in my capacity as the chairman of the Executive Committee of the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the authority that represents the Palestinian people and its spokesperson. We are ready, as of now, to start serious negotiations with our Israeli neighbors and under the auspices of the quartet. I have informed Dr. Rice of all this. I have informed her of our readiness. I have equally informed the chair of the European Union, as well as the other members of the European Union and many of the Arab countries, as we had undertaken and promised, the Lord willing, to start soon this process. Nothing, ladies and gentlemen, is more important than peace, one that would ensure a secure existence for our children, Jew and Arab alike, in the Holy Land and in the Middle East, so that this strategic part of the world may become an oasis of coexistence and forgiveness, and not a source of unrest or violence. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you, President Mahmoud Abbas. Now, Deputy Prime Minister Livni.
Thank you, distinguished Chairman, President Abbas, my colleague, Minister Peres, I hope, the future President of Israel, maybe. Ladies and gentlemen, after watching together these wonderful children and youth calling us to make peace after listening to President Abbas, I think that we all shared and we all watched it in a kind of a mixed feeling. On one hand, a kind of sadness for lost opportunities. On the other hand, hope. And they gave me hope, but I think that our responsibility is to give them hope. And I think that this is something that we owe them. They are our children, and they are the future of our both people. And I think that if there is something that can come out of this room is a promise to generations to come, Palestinians and Israelis, that will take all the measures, all the efforts to bring peace to our region. For a better future, we also must stick to the vision of two states living side by side in peace, and examine, even in the most difficult times, what are the best way to achieve or to advance this goal. It is true that in both of our societies there is sometimes deep skepticism about the possibility to end the conflict and to achieve peace. And looking back at past experience, I can understand it. I can understand it. We tried almost everything. We tried what is called, or what we can say, a step-by-step approach in Oslo Agreement, in the Oslo Accord, and the agreement that was signed afterwards. The idea was to create confidence, but it produced lack of confidence, unfortunately. The end game, 2000, Camp David 2000, the idea was to try and end the conflict. We tried. It produced no agreement, but led to frustration. This is also part of our reality. And the unilateral step, the disengagement plan, during which Israel dismantled settlements. We took our forces out of Gaza Strip in order to give the Palestinians the message that Israel means business, that we are willing to take off settlements, that we would like to live in peace, and to give an opportunity to the Palestinians to transform Gaza into a success, into the first part of a Palestinian state. But the result is that Gaza now is a kind of a terror nest controlled by Hamas, by terrorist organizations. And no, I still believe that this was the right thing to do. I don't regret it. But in order to achieve peace and in order to promote a process, I do believe that we cannot fail. And there's a need for us to look or to hold this vision of two-state solution, and on the other hand, to look what are the best steps to take. The current plan, the roadmap, it's a kind of a combination between the different approaches. On one hand, there's a political horizon for the Palestinian, at the end of the road, a Palestinian state. On the other hand, at the first phase, there's a need for the Palestinians to dismantle terrorist organizations in order to give the Israelis the understanding and the assurance that the Palestinian state is not going to be a terror state, because the idea is two states living side by side in peace. This is a step-by-step process, but yet it gives a real political horizon for the Palestinians. So I said that we have to hold this vision of two-state solution, but I would like, and I think that this is also part of our responsibility, because I believe that the political horizon is vital to both our people. On one hand, to give a clear vision to the Palestinian what is the nature of the Palestinian state, and the understanding that the Palestinian state is not illusion, it's feasible, it's there, it's achievable. And at the same time to give the Israelis the assurance that their concessions will not threaten their lives. So I think that it is important that we will try to understand, can we really agree on the same vision? I mean, we are using the same words, two-state solution, living side by side in peace. It looks like we both share the same vision. but we need to understand whether this is just a term of speech or we really mean the essence of this vision. Two states, what is the meaning of two states? Two states, two homelands for two different people. One is Israel, homeland for the Jewish people, a state that gave refuge to the Jews from Europe, and those who had to leave Arab states came to Israel as their own homeland. By its own establishment, Israel gave the national answer to the Jewish people, those who live today in Israel and those who live outside of Israel. So does the Palestinian state. The establishment of a Palestinian state as homeland for the Palestinians is the answer, the national answer to the Palestinians wherever they are. Those who live in the territories and those who live outside of the territories, and including the refugees. So the establishment of a Palestinian state is the national answer to the Palestinian and is the only, the right and the just solution to the refugee issue. Thanks. Two states, two homelands, living side by side in peace. Equally important is that the two states live side by side in peace and security. This means that we cannot allow the Palestinian state to be a terrorist entity. It cannot be ruled by terrorist organization. The first stage of the roadmap represented, and also the three requirements of the international community, the quartet, that was adopted by the quartet following the results of the elections in the Palestinian Authority. And the requirements are the same requirements from any Palestinian government, not only to accept former agreements between Israel and the Palestinians, but also to accept the right of Israel to exist and to renounce violence and terrorism. These requirements are part of any process. They are not an obstacle. We are not looking for excuses not to promote a process, but we would like to promote a process the right way. So these are part of any process and they can facilitate any genuine process. I don't want to relate to the future borders of the Palestinian state, but I cannot, since President Abbas related or mentioned 67 borders, just want to say a few words. Because in 67, there was no Palestinian state, and there was no connection between Gaza Strip and the West Bank. So it is for us to create something new. And I believe that the Palestinian state is an Israeli interest as well as a Palestinian interest. But the future borders are part of future negotiations between Israel and Palestinians. Now, in order to realize this vision, we must take into account also the battle which is taking place in the region between moderates, committed to the vision of two-state solution, and extremists committed to destroying it. For the ruling elite in Tehran, for Hezbollah, and for Hamas, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is not a political but religious. Therefore, the two-state solution doesn't comply with their hatred agenda. They are opposed to coexistence and to the two-state solution, not just as a matter of policy, but as a matter of ideology. The conflict is the consequence and not the cause for this ideology. Moderate leaders need to give the answer to new threats. But I do believe that there are new threats in the region, but there are also new opportunities. Because we share the same goals and the same vision, all the moderates in the region. Talking about Israel, about moderates in the Palestinian Authority, about moderates Arab and Muslim leaders, talking about the international community, the free world. It's not a zero-sum game. To support Israel is not to be anti-Palestinian. To support the moderate is to fight for the same goals that we all believe in. So these are the challenges, and I believe that this is the role of the international community. to disempower the extremists and to empower the moderate. This needs to be simultaneously. On the one hand, to empower, to encourage, to strengthen the moderates, and on the other hand, to disempower, to keep the pressure, to keep the demands and the requirements, and delegitimize the extremists. The best way to do it, this is also part of negotiations that we should take between ourselves and the Palestinians. But of course, talking about strengthening the moderates, part of it is financial support. The other is giving political horizon in order that in future elections in the Palestinian Authority, those voters can look at the possibilities and they will face clear distinctions between those who can deliver financial and also on a political level. They can give hope and those who cannot deliver. And there's a need that the international community will show determination and prevent any kind of flow of cash to the terrorist organization and support the moderates. We are willing to help as far as we can. I know that within the international community there is an expectation to see us advancing. I can assure you that there is nothing I want more. I mean, this is part of our dream, this is part of our goal. We'd like to see a process. This is my dream, this is our dream, this is the dream of the children that we saw, this is the dream of the Israeli leadership. Stagnation is not the Israeli government policy. But, on the other hand, at the same time, we have to show responsibility for generations to come, and we cannot afford to fool ourselves with false illusions. And we have to challenge the problems facing us, including terror, even though it is a difficult task. But there are difficult decisions to take both sides, and we cannot afford, and fighting terrorism is one of the decisions, and we cannot afford ourselves just to put this obstacle aside, because part of the vision is two states living side by side in security. I know that it's not easy. I can say that it was also difficult for me to vote in favor for the disengagement claim. I mean, I voted for uprooting Israelis in order to give peace a chance. So there are difficult decisions, but the best way is to tackle these challenges, to give the answer, not to say, okay, this is too difficult, let's find something else, because at the end of the day, it's there, and we have to give it an answer. But no doubt, I would like to negotiate, to speak, to meet, to talk, because I believe that this is part of the need to share ideas, to find out what are the common denominators, to see what we can achieve, what are the ability, and what we can promote. I would like to hear your concerns, and I also like to share our concerns with you. This is part of any talks, of any meetings, and I believe that this is the right thing to do. But at the same time, negotiations and talk do not free us from the need to implement what we agreed upon. Ladies and gentlemen, the vast majority of Israelis believe in the two-state solution in the true meaning. I need to convince them that this is not a risk for Israel, but this is the true and right vision. And President Abbas, I am aware of the fact that you face difficult decisions. Compromising with extremists will not lead us, will not promote anything, but it can lead to further stagnation. We have missed many opportunities in the past. The Palestinians could have celebrated their independent state already 6 years ago after Camp David, or even 60 years ago after the partition plan of the United Nations. I say this not in order to blame. It's not for me to blame or to find excuses, and there is no monopoly for mistakes, both sides. But the choice is not between all or nothing. we should find a way to promote a process. It may be true that there are new threats and challenges that face us, but there are new opportunities. So let us hope that we have the wisdom and the courage to take the right decisions and to implement it for a better future for generations to come. Thank you.
Shimon Peres, do you want to add your vision?
Mr. Chairman, my dear friend Klaus Schwab, Mr. Abu Mazen, 13 years ago the two of us signed for the first time an agreement between the Palestinian people and the Israeli state. For me it's a bar mitzvah, which I don't regret and I shall never forget. And my dear friend and colleague, Tzipi Livni, in spite of the fact that we belong to the same government, I agree with every word she has said, which is most unusual. I like to come to Davos because for me, hope is like snow. It comes from the top of the mountains, from the magic mountains. Last year, Mr. Klaus, you didn't have enough snow. This year we are better off, and I hope it will be true, not only about the snow, but also about the hope. As I see it, peace should be done in a double helix, a line of politics and a line of economy, inseparable, parallel, but not dependent. Politically, Mrs. Livni already described the conditions, which basically we have departed from our past, the Olmert government, that didn't pay enough attention to the two-state solution, and many of them would be for one-state solution. This government is clearly a two-state solution, hoping that the Palestinian state will enjoy real independence, will enjoy affluence, will enjoy respect, will enjoy contiguity in its land. We don't want to take away land from them, and wherever there is a need to take a little bit of land, we want to confiscate with other land, and we really would like to see a strong, democratic Palestinian state. The better the Palestinians will have it, the better we shall have it. That's the best thing we can do for us and for our friends. I would just to make one remark about the Palestinian side as I perceive it. The difference between Hamas and Fatah, in my judgment, is Fatah represents destiny, Hamas tradition. Fatah the future, Hamas the past. And you cannot build a future just on the past. And politically, I do believe deep in my heart, most of the problems are solvable or can be solved. On the frontiers, we are not too far away. Even on Jerusalem, there are some ideas accepted by the two parties. And when it comes to the refugees, I think the only solution can be the Jewish refugees will come to the state of Israel and the Arab refugees to the state of the Palestinians. But really, I didn't come to discuss so much the political side as the economic side. Here in this room, we have representatives of companies that run $10 trillion. It's a fourth or a fifth of what the world produces altogether. It's a mighty gathering. So if I want to speak politics, I would go to the United Nations. If I want to speak economy, I would come to Davos. Politics is about borders. Davos, or economy, is about relations. And I sincerely believe that the non-governmental side of our life can today run economy something which is extremely difficult for governments to do. Economy became global because it's based on science, and science is global. It's indivisible. Science is indivisible, water is indivisible, fresh air is indivisible, energy is indivisible, and all this must be done by companies that can really have an overall look and an overall approach, not to be bound and arrested by the old prejudices of politics and go ahead. And also, may I say, government must be conservative. They must defend what they have accumulated. Companies must take risks. They must make their profit from things that don't exist, not from accumulations, but from penetrations, not from the known, but from the unknown, which is unlimited, neither by borders nor by horizons. It's totally free open. And I do believe time has come that while the politics will be done in a couple between the Palestinians and us, the economy in our region should be done by a troika, the Jordanians, the Palestinians, and us. Nature doesn't permit any other solution. We cannot save the Dead Sea unless we shall do it together. We cannot build new industries and agriculture and tourism unless we shall do it together. And actually the situation today is that the three countries, the Jordanians, the Palestinians, and us, have agreed to take the whole length of the frontier between Israel, Jordan, and the Palestinians, 500 kilometers long, and convert it into an ongoing economic zone, comprising a conduit of water from the Red Sea to the Dead Sea to save the Dead Sea, comprising joint airports, joint touristic occasions, joint agriculture, and many other things. And I really appeal to you, don't look to the governments for peace. Clearly don't look at the governments for an economic peace. Governments have budgets, they don't have money. Governments have institutions, but they don't have a free choice. The ones that can really invest and change the whole situation are you, ladies and gentlemen, that represents a new age. You know, they say the Stone Age is over, not because there are no more stones. There is no more age. And we have to approach a totally new challenge that you can do. Why should you do it? Because I believe that companies are looking for emerging markets, emerging opportunities, and emerging technologies. Why is that a new opportunity? Because if you are global, you must be interested in the globality of peace. And without settling the Middle East, it will hardly be a global peace. You must have stability. You must have concern about the feelings which are different among different cultures, Muslims and Jewish and Buddhist and Christians, all of them. Today, you know, global companies are not so much private. They're really global. I didn't say international, because nations are not so important. The globe is important. And the overall concern to have a better world. You can do it. You are trained on it, and you are ready to take risks. But also I can be more specific. The Arab world today is 300 million people. In 10 years it will be 600 million people. Once we shall get rid of the obstacles and the past dictators, it will begin to raise its standard of living, like China did, like India does, and it will be a very important market in the future. And the time to enter this market is when it's beginning to emerge, not too late, but at the early stages. And then also, you know, when you look at the traditional economy, people say, cut the cost of, say, interest by 10%. It's nonsense. Cut by 10%, 15%. This is not the source of the emerging markets. If you'll come to this piece of land, the 500 kilometer of what we call a valley of peace, you can double immediately the value of land. It's much more than any percentage. Create artificial lakes, create extremely modern and sophisticated agriculture. Take advantage of our parents that at least one thing they did for us. They prepared a beautiful touristic attraction in Jerusalem and Jericho and Nazareth and Petra. Really, it's fantastic. And it can be developed very much. And it can really lower the thorns and the flames of a Muslim resistance, and do it rather quickly. May I also add one thing? While governments don't like the intervention of other governments, the same governments like the coming in of foreign capital, of modern capital, of economic capital. No problems. All of them are ready to do it, and they will be thankful. You are $10 trillion. Every day, $1.5 trillion are changing hands. They don't take orders from the governments. They have their own logic. They have their own outlook, considering the present and considering the future. And in the Middle East, it's an awaiting land to create a different future, both politically and economically. So, for me, the snow of Davos is the hope for the future. You sit here, you can have a look, build branches. I don't suggest to waste your time, to waste your money. I suggest to invest for an awaiting opportunity that the result of it can be unexpected, tremendous, and a bless for all of us. Thank you.
We have heard from the young people the voices of expectations of hope. We have heard today from President Abbas, from Deputy Prime Minister Livni and Shimon Peres, their commitment for a two-state solution. And I hope we all join the efforts to find a lasting solution for peace between Israel and the Palestinians. Before we end, let me just make two announcements, and I will do so first, and Deputy Prime Minister, I give you the last word. We at the World Economic Forum, to support this process, we are in the late stage of a process of creating an Israeli-Palestinian Business Council, exactly in line, Shimon, of what you laid out. I mean, we have to stimulate business and hopefully also foreign investments. And now the last word is with you, Mrs. Livni.
Thank you. Before we entered the room, I had the opportunity to meet with our chairman, Mr. Schwab, and we discussed what is the best way to send a message of peace in the Middle East. And I said, you know, that we say every year in Passover, next year in Jerusalem. So I said, why not to make this World Economic Forum in Jerusalem as a message to the region, to Israelis, to the Palestinians, to the young people here. And thank you. I mean, and the message was clear that in 2008, this is our goal. And I hope that we can send this message from Jerusalem to Israelis, Palestinians, to the region, that we are going to fulfill and to implement this promise to the young generations with this forum in Jerusalem. Thank you so much.
Again, thank you very much.